All right.
Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Bomb. Drop the bomb. We gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new value, and a new experience.
I'm looking at him and he's scared. He's scared of me.
I see kids when they see me in uniform go out their way just to say to the top of their lungs, I hate the police. Can't stand the police. They used to love us. What happened?
I heard a bullhorn and it said, pull over.
And the first thing out of their mouth was,
what are you doing here?
What are you doing here?
What are you doing here? I said, excuse me?
I said, why did you stop me? And he said, because we're stopping anyone who looks like they're not from this neighborhood.
Law enforcement officers have been the face of oppression to far too many of our fellow citizens. This dark side of our shared history has created a generational, almost inherited mistrust.
Racial profiling is so dangerous because we dehumanize each other.
Quite a bit of what we worry about today when we talk about bias has to do with perception.
People have looked at African Americans as being stronger, more violent.
So the enemy uniform became the color of somebody's skin.
That looks like a bad dude, too.
Shots fired! 321, we have shots fired. We have one suspect down.
It's always reaching for your waistband.
Making up probable cause, creating reasonable suspicion, resisting.
I fear for my life.
I walk the streets of my own neighborhood, and I'm chased and hounded, persecuted, and have guns drawn on me.
You know, men and women feeling the need to kill somebody because they frightened them is outrageous.
After an interaction with the Howard County Police in 2012 that he found deeply troubling, filmmaker A.J. Ali says he was motivated to address the relations between police and the African American community. So what did A.J. do? He teamed up with Errol Webber, a Maryland Institute of College of the Art alumnus and cinematographer who previously worked on an Oscar award-winning documentary. With Ali as director and Webber as director of photography, they produced Walking While Black, L.O.V.E. Love is the Answer, which discusses bridging the gap in police community relations throughout America. The acronym L.O.V.E. or LOVE, coined by Ali, is to encourage people to learn about others in their community, open their heart to them, volunteer to be part of the solution in their life, and empower others to do the same. The solutions-focused documentary was completed and features over 30 interviews with members of communities from across the country. I would like to welcome my friend, my brother, A.J. Ali, to the Sound Bombing family. What's happening, brother? How are you doing?
Hey, doctor, how you doing? I'm doing great out here in Santa Monica.
Oh man, don't rub it in, man. Thank you for joining us in the bomb shelter, man. Man, so we got a lot to talk about. The last time I saw you, and the first time I saw the film, was at the Congressional Black Caucus, hosted by my mentor. I'm proud to say one of the dopest congressmen in office right now, Congressman Elijah Cummings. He hosted you at the Congressional Black Caucus last year to a packed house, to an amazing panel to come and see this film, Walking While Black, man. So thank you for coming on. So, you know, in the introduction, I talked about your inspiration was because you were pulled over in 2012. Was there something prior to that that also sort of said, hey, this is an opportunity to put a film out about what's happening in the black community?
Well, you know how it is, man. If you're a black man in America, you're gonna experience racial profiling from the time you start going to school until you go to your grave. And I'm 54 now, so this happened in Howard County, where I was stopped by police for walking in my own neighborhood when I was 48. Right? Yeah, I had experienced other family members from a young age, you know, being profiled and treated bad by police. It started for me when I was 16, when I got my driver's license, and the first stop was a guy pulling me over, saying that I was too close to the center line, not touching it, not over it, just too close to it. And he wound up letting me go, not writing a ticket or giving me a warning for anything because he didn't have anything on me. But every decade after that, man, I've been through stuff just like, most every other black man or woman in America. But in 2012, when I was stopped for walking in my own neighborhood, that was the last straw for me. And that was after Trayvon Martin had been killed. It was before a lot of the other stuff that we've seen on the news. And I just knew that at that point I had to do something more than just complain about it or joke about it with my friends or cry about it in private. I had to do something, so it changed my life.
Man, you went beyond doing something, brother. Most people will do what you just said. They'll joke about it. They may write a letter. They may complain to family members. But man, very few people will go beyond what you did. I mean, you not even just writing a book, man. You produced, directed a film, man. How did it feel, first of all, to see the final production of the film? Because we're going to talk about the process. But what was your emotion when you saw? Because I know about it. I know the feeling of sitting in an editing bay. It's different from just being in the editing bay all night. You probably was drinking coffee, eating unhealthy food like most of us in these editing bays. But when you saw it on the big screen, man, tell me, how did that feel?
Well, first of all, man, I stay away from the unhealthy stuff. So I might have had some horchatas and some kombuchas, man.
Oh, there we go.
I didn't. Yeah, but so the process, as you know all too well, right? It's making a film is 1% glamour and 99% grit and frustration and pain and so we really spent a lot of time, thousands of hours, shooting, editing, poring over every shred of information and all of that with my great team. Errol Webber did a fantastic job as DP, and the sound and lighting and everything was off the chain because of him. And we had so many other great folks. Lydia Hall, who's also a Micah grad, who was our editor, her first time editing a feature film, and she knocked it out of the park. And I thank them. I thank my whole team for great work that they did, but I also got to give all credit to God, because I wanted to make a really, really angry film. When all this happened to me and I reported it to the Howard County NAACP and Internal Affairs, and then I became a target by that police department, my wife and I, for a year after that. I wanted to make a very angry film to get a lot of people fired, and God didn't let me make that film. So 2.5 years into the process, everything changed for me when I was sitting on the beach in Hawaii, and the Holy Spirit just downloaded the whole "Love is the Answer" message and mandate to me to rise above that and let go of the fear and the anger. And so we were able to use those guiding principles while we were making the film, and everybody was on track, man. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I'm sure the hardest thing that some of the other people on my team had been involved with. But we got through it wound up making a very beautiful, heartfelt film that's transforming lives now. And I'm so happy that we came to that place.
Well, sound bombing is about healing. And, when we talk about balm, BALMING, we're talking about healing. And I'm so glad to hear you sort of reference your spirituality, but then also say that you had to admit that you wanted to make an angry film, that you were enraged, like most of us are. And quite often when we use rage as the forefront, we don't get anything done. I mean, quite often, anger sometimes can push you in the right and the wrong direction. But I'm glad that you sat back, you relaxed. I like how you just rubbed it in my face. Like I was in Hawaii, hanging out on the beach. The spirit just spoke to me. Yeah, I'm sure if you're in Hawaii, a whole bunch of things are probably speaking to you, brother. But I'm glad, whatever it was, whatever we called that, and you called it what it is, God or spirit, that it spoke to you and it gave you the forefront to actually to give you the language to then direct this amazing film. Before we get into the film and we talk about, police brutality, what were some of your roadblocks that you faced when starting out on this particular project?
Well, I found out who my friends were. So when I was talking with people, and I don't care whether they were black or white, I would find out real quick who wanted to be involved in change and who was afraid of this subject. And, just the title that we came up with, and the title was very simply Walking While Black, because that's what I experienced, right? And I was seeing other incidents of that. So when we would say Walking While Black and people would turn and run in the other direction, which of those three words scared them so much that they would say, I can't be involved with that, right? Walking, while, or black. And therein lies the problem in America.
Wow. So while filming this particular project, what are some things that you discovered that you didn't expect to discover?
Oh boy, I didn't expect to discover the depth of pain in this country. We all know there's racism. We all know there's bias. But this country it's not a new thing. It's not because people have phones now with cameras. This has been going on since the very beginning of the annihilation of Native Americans and the slavery and importation of blacks against their will to this country. This is in the DNA, in the fabric of America. When people talk about making America great again, look, I was born here. I love this country. I served in the military. But if you look at the devastation, America's never been great. America has wasted so much of its resources, and the greatest resources of all, its people. And so I didn't expect to find the level, the depth of racism and devastation and pain in this country that I found out. That from 2012 until now, my eyes have been opened so wide. And look, I was woke before then, but when I dove into the deep end of this subject, to realize that bias has permeated every cell of this country. And we've got so far to go, and there's so many people that want to keep us from progressing. We all have to stand up and fight. There's no excuse for someone not being in the fight. We cannot afford for people to be on the sidelines with this.
And so, what do you want people to walk out of the theater to do, or how do you want them to feel once they leave from watching this great film, Walking While Black? Because most documentaries have a call to action.
Yeah. There have been a lot of documentaries on the subject of racism, and they're very, very powerful. I Am Not Your Negro, powerful, must see. Great. 13th, powerful, must see. Yeah, man, Selma. I mean, Ava knocked it out of the park with the work that she's doing, right? But look, I don't want people to just become angry or march for something and just end it there. I want people to leave seeing my film with a feeling of A, I have to do something, and B, I have to do something with a spirit of love. And we kind of patterned the film after those 4 principles. And I want people to leave there thinking, okay, I've got to build bridges. I've got to find ways to bring truth and reconciliation into my community. And I hope that if they see it in a theater or at an event like the CBC, which I thank God for Congressman Cummings with all of his support, having hosted 2 screenings and just the amazing work that he does every single day on our behalf. I hope that people leave an event like that and then say, you know what, I've got to show this film in my home to my neighbors and invite a police officer from my community to come sit down with us and have dinner and watch the film and then have a discussion over coffee and dessert. And let's change things together. Let's learn and grow together. And Recall knows, guess who's coming to dinner. That's the title that we give in those events. And the guess who is not Sidney Poitier, but the guess who is the guess who in this instance is a cop, right? Because we're having discussions in silos. Police are talking by themselves. We're talking by ourselves. Let's get people together in a safe setting and watch the film and have break bread and have a discussion together, and that's what I hope they do after they see this thing.
So speaking about getting people together, I know some of the people that are in the film. One guy I have a lot of respect for, Melvin Russell. How were you able to get those individuals who are featured in the documentary, or the film rather, to sit down with you and openly have a conversation? What was it about those people?
Melvin and I, we go back to when I was producing and starring in the show Goodfellas of Baltimore, on Fox in Baltimore, and so I met him during the filming of that, and we became friends. And so when what happened to me in Howard County, when that happened, I would call Melvin and ask him things like, "Man, why are y'all so crazy? Why are you guys doing this kind of stuff to us?" And he wouldn't respond when I was really angry. He would just kind of change the subject a little bit, and then he'd give me some advice. And you know how he is, right? He'll talk you down from being in the wrong place. And so he didn't get involved. He was always there for me, but he didn't get involved. And he was always the guy that I would reach out to, and when I was like ready to hurt somebody, because there was a long time where I was ready to go after these guys because they were threatening, me and my family at that point. And he was always the one who let me know, just by who he was, that all cops weren't bad, that there was some hope. And that's why I kept going back to him, because I kept testing him. And that's why he's in the film, and that's why I consider him one of my closest brothers on earth today, because he's part of the reason why this film is impacting people in all over the country now.
Out of all the cases that you sort of cover throughout the film, which one of those cases just was like jaw dropping to you? Out of all the cases and all the things that you featured in there, which one just sort of just like, wow, I can't believe that this happened?
Oh man, that would have to be Andrew and Jamel, brother.
So talk about that.
Yeah. So Andrew Collins is a white guy, former cop. He framed Jamel McGee on a drug charge that Jamel didn't do anything. But he got framed by Andrew, and Jamel got a 10-year sentence. And this is in Michigan, a little town called Benton Harbor. And so 4.5 years into the sentence, Andrew got caught by the FBI on a bunch of stuff, right? And he fessed up to the point where I think it was like 60 or 65 cases got thrown out, and Jamel was released from prison as Andrew is going into prison. So Andrew wound up getting a 4.5 year sentence, and he did like 1.5 years and then got released. And so a few years later, they're both back there in Benton Harbor. And all this time, Jamel was thinking, when I see this guy, I'm going to kill him. And
now, Jamel's the African-American guy, correct? He's the one that was locked up, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. And so when he finally bumped into him at a park, Jamel had his little son with him. And he forgave Andrew that day. And they wound up running into each other again when Jamel was going for a job, and Andrew was working at this place, and Andrew was assigned to him as his mentor, and Jamel had a choice, and he went ahead and chose to accept him as his mentor. They became good friends, and they reconciled, and now they're going around the country teaching people about reconciliation. And we kind of closed the film out with their story, because in my opinion, if Jamel can forgive Andrew, anyone can forgive, and that's a powerful story there. And that's some people really need to see the film, if not for anything else, to see that story of those two guys who are brothers now.
Yeah, I mean, so you have the black guy, the white guy. You have the white guy, the officer, the black guy from the neighborhood. I mean, when you're talking about forgiveness, I mean, that is a great example on film of humanity at its best. And, the Dalai Lama said it best when he says love is the absence of judgment. That this brother who was incarcerated, because I was watching this, it moved me, says that I'm not going to judge you. And I think, because of I think the most beautiful lesson is what his son was there to see all of this take place. Because again, our children are observing every move that we make. everything that we're doing. And I think by adding that to the film, you gave it a piece of humanity that we don't see a lot in film making as much. You made it real, you made it tangible. And then to see now that these two individuals are now traveling all over the country, having these conversations, and then allowing the healing to take place, because there's so much pain in our community. This fear of police officers. I mean, you think about it. You know, when we were children, you would hear people say, like, AJ, your uncle would be like, you know, AJ, if you don't stop, I'm going to call the police. Think about that. What does that say? That me as your uncle, AJ, I can't control you. But if I say I'm going to call the police, now I'm putting fear in your heart. And I think Brother Melvin Russell mentioned this. He says, we used to be the good guys. Now when I put my uniform on, now I'm the bad guy. It's my hope, and I'm sure it's your hope, that this film would do what you just said, create a dialogue. The only way that healing can take place is that people need to sit down, old school, break bread, have conversations with one another about this healing and about this process, because that's the only way. We music is not doing it, and I love music. TV is not doing it, but the old school, sitting down in individuals' houses and or in a common place where we can have these conversations.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. You know, there's so many stories I could tell, but and there, you know, if you look at some of the work done by Paul McCartney, for example, or Stevie Wonder, you know, there's music has great healing power when used in the right way. But let's face it, a lot of the stuff that's put out today and for a long time has been putting people into a state of mind that's hostile and just, you know, hurting people in many ways. Video games and movies and TV and others forms of media, same thing. So we have a responsibility as filmmakers, as journalists, to help shape and guide, you know, people in a certain way. And we're proud of the work that we've done, because it is getting people to think, okay, you know, maybe this love thing can work. You know, maybe I can let go of my hate, you know, my hatred. Maybe I don't have to, you know, treat people badly when they treat me bad. We had a 15-year-old kid in Watts come to Mark Adams, one of my associate producers, and tell him after a screening at a high school there that he's hated cops his whole life until that day, until he had a chance to see the film, and producers who were there, who spent time with him afterwards. And he said from that day forward, he was going to be a positive change, that he was going to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And we've got to see more of that.
Yeah, and I guess that's a great way to sort of sum up this conversation, is that, you know, you've touched not only just thousands of lives, but a young brother who was struggling with the police. I mean, when you talked about anger, I have to admit, 1988 was my theme song, a group out of California where you are right now, NWA, F the Police. I was feeling that anger. And I come from, my dad was a police officer in Chicago, and I know the feeling of being pulled over and walking while black, sleeping while black, eating while black. And so when that song came out, you know, I was chanting that because it made a lot of sense. And then fast forward, there's a song out by Bruce Springsteen called American Skin, 41 Shots. It's about the shooting of Amadou Diallo, a brother who was from another country who stood in the vestibule and was shot 41 times. And so it's important for us to have these conversations to create some healing, because I know, AJ, when I was young, man, that police thing, NWA was my theme song. But then as I got older and I started to say, well, law enforcement wants to get home safe and the children wants to get home safe. Well, we need to sort of bridge the gap. And then I did this activity called The Truth About Cops and Hip Hop, where I talked about how we need to work together, how we need to heal together. And this film now is a piece that I'm using in some of my talks, where I use some of the snippets to say, hey, this is what's happening across the country. This brother is using his medium, this film, to have these conversations. And so I think that you're right on, brother. You're going to be forever busy, because as long as the person that's in office right now stays in office, and as long as that spirit of hate and hatred, your film is going to be needed more and more. And I just hope you are prepared to continue these dialogues and these conversations. What's next with the film and what's next with AJ Ali?
You know, we're not done with this. We're rolling out workshops, a conference. We did our first conference in Syracuse in the fall. We've got 6 different formats for our workshop, ranging from an hour to 6 weeks long. We're doing a lot of training. So people who have seen the film, we need to get them into our training courses. We're also training trainers and we're training community organizers. So we're going deep, and we're going to be at this for as long as it takes for our society to change and go in another direction, a direction of love.
Well, man, that is a great way to end the show, man. So how could people get in contact with you, AJ, and how could they see the film?
Thank you. So they can see the film at walkingwhileblackthemovie.com. That's walkingwhileblackthemovie.com. My contact information is there. There's also a movement site that we created. They go to trylovenow.com and see how they can get involved in different things. So there you go.
Well, man, much success to you. Thank you for doing this film. Thank you for being bold. I love the fact that you are doing workshops across the country and just not showing a film, because just a film by itself without a dialogue is not as strong. So thank you for joining us at Sound Bombing. I also want to thank my producer, Darius Wilmore, and Supremacy for our theme music. And as always, believe that something wonderful is about to happen and that some people miss the message because they are too busy looking for the mistake. This is your man, Dr. LaMarr Darnell Shields, and thank you. You've been listening to Sound Bombing.